It's weird. There's nobody here.
Oi oi, you lucky people. Have I got a special delivery for you? It's this game, Courier Crisis, on the PS1.
Back in 2015, I made a video review of one of my favourite, seldom talked about childhood games, Overboard, for the PS1. It was fairly well received, well, by my standards as a very small-time YouTuber, so I thought I should immediately get to work on another review of another seldom talked about childhood favourite of mine. And so, just 8 years later, here I am with my review of Courier Crisis. Courier Crisis is a game where you control a bicycle that controls its parasitic entity known as a human being. This human being in particular is known as a courier and is utterly dependent on its bicycle master for its survival. As a courier, its job is to take stuff from one space to another space, for which it is rewarded with tokens of exchange. This practice is known roughly as a job. However, don't ask me what a job is, as I don't have one myself. I think it's like a plant, which you have to water every day, and if you don't water it every day then it shrivels up and dies, very much like children do, as I'm sure you're all aware. The game was developed by New Level Software and released in 1997 for BMG Software for the PS1 and SEGA Saturn. In this video I am covering the PS1 version, as that's the version that I played back in the day, and it's a lot easier to get a hold of than the Saturn version. I mean, I don't even know how to get to the moon, never mind Saturn. As you can see from this footage, the game is set in a 3D city environment, similar to games like Driver. This of course was years before the first 3D Grand Theft Auto, and at the time this was the only game that I had where I could explore and cause chaos in a 3D city environment. Though unlike the 3D Grand Theft Auto games, there isn't one big city to explore, but more like the 2D Grand Theft Auto games, there are several zones that come in several distinct flavours. There is the Civic Centre, the Waterfront Zone, Industrial Zone, Chinatown, and my personal favourite, Skid Row, which is populated by criminal scum, rabid dogs, and pimps. It's a happy little place where people could get randomly shot at any time, like most American cities. You'll know where your deliveries are coming from the person who is constantly shouting at you.
Hey, get your keister over here! Got it!
And if that wasn't apparent enough for you, they'll also have a big arrow over their heads. Simply ride into them to pick up your pickup, and the person will vanish into non-existence, content in the knowledge that they have served their purpose, and their non-existent package is in your safe hands.
Excuse me, you stink!
Then by following the arrow at the top of the screen, you will take the delivery to another human-shaped pixelated creature, who will also vanish when you have completed your delivery, into the vast, empty void of non-existence, waiting for the day that you replay the stage to exist once again, and begin the cycle once more.
Got it.
Get it, cycle? Because you're on a bike? Man, that's some top tier joke right there.
I'm over here. Got it.
The game is divided into several levels, getting harder and harder like your mum's penis, with each level consistent of the same 5 flavoured stages, but with some stages altering in layout from time to time. Mastering the controls can be quite difficult, but once you get the hang of it, the game can be quite fun. The game didn't really receive much praise when it was first released, and I think a lot of that has to do with the kind of awkward control system. It does feel a little clunky, I have to admit. It is very easy to crash, and the more you crash or get hit by pedestrians, the more your life bar decreases. The life bar being that bicycle chain on the bottom of the screen. The timer on the top right will decrease, going from green to yellow to red before eventually running out. To get the maximum amount of money, you will have to be quick and deliver your deliveries while the timer is still green. If you deliver within the yellow, you will get less money, and if you deliver within the red, it will be even less. If you run out of time, then you fail the stage, and the courier missions stop. However, the game doesn't boot you out of the level, and you're free to continue playing on that stage and explore if you want to. This gives you the chance to find shortcuts and the quickest routes, so the next time you'll know the best way to complete the stage. You can also just hang around and have some fun causing a little chaos, which is what I always used to do. Though not quite as fun as GTA, you can go about running people over, and you can even go about kicking and punching them. I admit I was never very good at the game when I was younger, and I mostly just played this game to have a bit of fun killing people. As you do. Unlike the GTA games though, Courier Crisis also includes child pedestrians, which is kinda strange thinking about it now. When I was younger I had no problems with kicking and running over little girls, but now that I'm older it sort of feels a little bit uncomfortable when I accidentally run them over in the game. And in real life too. In order to complete a level, you'll have to do all the stages on that level. You can choose which order you would like to do the stages, and then you will automatically move on to the next level when you've completed all the stages on that level. You can't go back and play the other levels until you complete the game. However, you can replay the stages that you've completed on the level you're on currently. This, unfortunately, will require you to pay a small fee to repeat the stage. Useful if you did poorly and would like to try the stage again if you think you can do better, but could also mean you end up losing more money if you do worse. That money you earn from completing deliveries will go towards buying a new bike, and there are several to choose from. Much like games like Road Rash, you will have to keep upgrading your bike to progress through the game, as the early bikes are much slower than those more expensive ones. For the first 4 or so levels, you can pretty much get by playing like an idiot, as I usually do. But once you get onto level 5, the game will give you this awful stage where you have next to no time at all to complete your first delivery. It took me quite a while to get past this stage due to the timer running out before I could get down the hill. In order to do this stage, you must learn the bike tricks. The bike tricks are absolutely necessary for completing the game and are often quite tricky to pull off. Doing a tabletop will give you a speed burst, which once acquired, you can use by double tapping square. Other power-ups you can acquire by doing bike tricks include the cross-up, which fixes your bike a little bit, extra time, and bunny hoops.
If you are interested in picking up a copy of Courier Crisis, I would highly recommend that you buy a copy that comes with the manual, because the manual will show you how to do all the bike tricks, which is absolutely necessary to get onto the later levels. Or you could always just look online and see how to do them.
When I was younger I used to watch my big brother play this game a lot, and he was able to find a little secret in the game. By pressing the top buttons on the stage select screen, the game will take you to a hidden stage. There are no courier missions on this stage, and it's basically just a loop with various ramps and things. This was either a test level left in by the developers, or it's here intentionally as a training stage. Though if that's the case, it's a little odd that it's not just on the menu for you to select as normal. I mean, I don't really get why they decided to do it with the top buttons, but regardless, this is a good place to practice doing bike tricks and gives you the chance to learn and master the controls. On this hidden stage, strangely, there's also this side alley which will take you to another looped road that's populated only by beach bunnies. Don't ask why, just enjoy. But don't enjoy too much. The later levels are very challenging, and I often get frustrated and just give up after about level 7 or 8ish. As I mentioned before, the game didn't receive much praise when it was first released, and I think a lot of that has to do with the controls, which are very difficult to master. When doing a quick search on YouTube, one of the first videos I found on Courier Crisis was a very short review by a guy who clearly didn't give the game much of a chance, and obviously didn't know how to play it. It was honestly some of the worst gameplay footage I've ever seen. And sadly, it seems to be how most people perceive this game. Admittedly, at face value, the graphics are kind of ugly, and the controls being difficult to master will put off a lot of people. But give it time, and it can be kind of fun. Now, I'm not saying it's the greatest game ever. I don't think it's even all that great of a game. All I'm going to say is that perhaps people have been a little too negative about it in the past, and it deserves a second look. Sure, it can be a bit frustrating at times, and to be honest, it does become a little bit repetitive, but I honestly think it's still a fairly decent game. At least it's playable, and can have its funny moments at times.
You're gonna need some ointment for that one.
Of course, as I've already mentioned, the graphics are not very nice looking, and I even remember thinking back in the day that stuff like the poor draw distance and gaps and the stages looked really bad. However, it's also clear that someone did put a lot of time and effort into creating all the detailed and colourful environments. And I think it's kind of sad that the only time people ever talk about this game is basically to criticise it and not really give it a fair chance. I wouldn't really say that Courier Crisis is among one of my favourite PS1 games, but I do have kind of a fondness and nostalgia for it, and I wish it had been maybe a little bit more polished up before it was released, as I honestly believe that it could have been a great game, had the controls been slightly tweaked maybe, and the stages maybe had a little bit more testing beforehand. A strange little thing that I noticed while making this review was the background music. This is because apparently, for whatever reason, the American version has the music set to the category the game calls so-call by default. The European version, which I have, plays a random category by default, which plays the categories rock, industrial and the like, but never actually plays the so-called category. So despite this music existing in the version that I have never actually heard this music before, as I didn't know that the music could be changed in the settings menu. Just another little detail that shows that the game could have done with a bit more testing and polish before its release. From looking online, it seems that the few people who like this game prefer the American version due to the music, but for me, I'm so used to the other music that I prefer it, and I have to be honest that I don't really like the so-called music very much, so I'm glad that the version I have doesn't play it by default. But you know, different strokes for different folks. I much prefer that sort of generic PS1 industrial techno type music, as it reminds me of that weird time in the mid to late 90s when I was just an odd little kid who enjoyed running people over on simulated bicycle creatures. Speaking of odd, there are a few odd things about this game. Of course, most of the peds wandering around aimlessly seem fairly normal. But there's also this zone which appears to be invaded by big, violent crabs, which will go out of their way to fuck you over. What the hell are all these crabs doing in this city? I have no idea. But I, for one, welcome our new crab overlords. All hail the Nip Nip Empire. In summary then, Courier Crisis is not a great game, and it's understandable why it's had its fair share of criticism over the years. That said though, I do actually like the game. Maybe it's just nostalgia, but there is something about it that makes me keep coming back to it after all these years. It was my first taste of that sandbox city chaos making fun that I enjoy so much with games like GTA, Just Cause and the Driver series. It does feel very 90s, and despite its flaws, such as its frustratingly difficult controls and bike tricks, I still have fun with it, playing it in short goes.
Courier Crisis is a game which I loved playing when I was younger, and I have a lot of nostalgic feeling for it. But as an adult, I can kind of see it definitely has a lot of issues and flaws, and could definitely do with some improvements here and there. But I don't think it's really that bad of a game. Some people make it out as if it's really bad, but I think it's kind of good. So if you like the look of it, I would recommend at least giving it a chance. Because it might not be the best game ever made, but it's certainly a game which exists. So, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. And the sun is in my eyes. Farewell.
Excuse me, over here? I guess you're not a complete imbecile.